Welcome, Brent.
Thanks for having me.
Of the McGregor clan. Now, tell me, are you? How many generations McGregor are you?
About 5 generations.
Okay, and then they've all been in Australia.
No, on my mother's side, I go right back to the first fleet on the Scarborough.
Wow!
My ancestors were wearing some rather heavy jewellery.
That's right. In those days,
clink clink. But on my dad's side, they've come through New Zealand, and that's where the McGregor comes from. I'm actually got a double barrel last name, McGregor Crow, but that's where my imprint comes from, dual crows, the crows in there.
Yeah.
But I just go by the pen name Brent McGregor, and my mates call me Brent McGregor.
You're nom de plume. So thank you very much. Well, the reason we're talking to you today is about your art. I mean, your I guess passion. For you and I, obviously we've got a little bit of history because you and I both dabble in the art of Dungeons and Dragons. That's how we met, practically, right?
Indeed.
Obviously, we don't get the time these days to do as much adventuring as we used to, but you were moonlighting as an author, and I had no idea what was going on.
There you are. I mean, tabletop role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, all that stuff is a bit of a gateway drug to writing.
Yeah.
So, it's only a hop, skip and a jump from writing a Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu scenario to actually writing fully fledged books. So,
wow. Yeah. Okay, so tell me, when did you start sort of getting that idea that maybe writing was going to be a thing?
Well, it actually goes back to a very early age. I was always writing little scratches of things in notebooks, and I fancied myself more as a songwriter or a poet, and I play guitar as well. I'm a bit of a hack, but I've played in bands and things, but I figure, I was just lazy. It seemed like, writing a poem or a a song was just a lot quicker to do than writing, a 400-page novel or whatever. But I tell you what, writing those poems is pretty hard too. But my grandfather, who was sort of estranged, we found that he actually was doing the same thing. I had no idea. He had suitcases full of notebooks, so I guess it runs in the blood, But I've been writing now actual short stories and novels and things for about 10 years, but really got serious about it in around 2019 when I came up with my imprint, Dual Crows Press.
Oh, yeah. Nice. And your latest offering is Blood Tide. That's your latest book of short novels, right?
Well, no. I've just released 2 books. So one's Strange Murmurings, which is the short story collection. So it's got everything in there from midnight hauntings to cryptids, cursed gnomes, and things like garden gnomes and things like that. A bit of fun. It's kind of like Black Mirror or Twilight Zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Big fan of them.
Short stories. But the book that I'm most proud of is this novel that I've released, my debut novel, Blood Tide. Which has just come out in November.
Do you still remember that you were sort of looking for titles, and so you gave me a big long list?
That's right. I forgot about that. Yes,
I didn't think I picked this one, Brent. I think this wasn't on my top 5, but now that I see it in print and that I see the cover, which you put together too, quite artistically, I may add, it all fits. It looks really good, and I can't wait to get into it. The thing about print, right? It's like a lot of the analog sort of skill sets that are kind of disappearing with the advent of audiobooks and videos and streaming. Yeah. It's I still find it very therapeutic to actually sit somewhere quiet and have a read and then just get involved in the pages. So anyone that's, not done that in a while, just grab one of these books.
Particularly with the advent of things like AI, making a conscious decision now to go more analog than ever and just need less distractions. So, one of my favourite writing mediums or ways to write is actually on my typewriter. So I have an old, typewriter I like to clink away on, or writing longhand. I've got one of these distraction-free digital typewriters now by Freewrite as well. So fun stuff. Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you a little story, right? I
thought I was the one who told stories.
No, but I'm going to tell you mine because this is my stories are always as I say, don't do as I do. Mm-hmm. So obviously I'm a tinkerer. You know me. I give a crack at everything. Whether it's
jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, right? Just whatever takes my fancy. And I remember I was in my early teens and I got gifted a typewriter. Your proper good old fashioned click typewriter. But what happened to me was that one of the letters, or maybe a couple of the letters, were just a tiny bit off, right? And I think this was my early discovery that there was some OCD in my brain somewhere. So every time I would type, I would just see those letters that were just a little bit off. And one day I decided to just grab a screwdriver and see if I could fix it. I didn't know how complex a typewriter is.
It's a beautiful bit of machinery.
I know. And once again, getting back to the analog things of it, like what a designer or someone that created a typewriter, for it to do what it did in the small sort of capacity that the last generations of these typewriters you could build, they were tiny, but they were so precise, Yeah. So now in hindsight, I look back and I should never have touched it, but because I would have a cool little typewriter still. But yeah. So do you collect them or do you just have the one?
I'd love to collect them. If I had space and the dineros, the monies, I definitely would. I'd love to get my hands on the old Corona type typewriters, and one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely. But, maybe when this goes crazy on the New York bestseller,
that'd be good.
You may get like one in the mail.
Yeah,
from Amazon.
Why not? Or if one of your listeners is listening, they can get in touch with you, and I can give you my address.
Absolutely,
where to send the typewriters to.
Look, we can always wish. Hey, so when you started, sort of went from poetry, and then obviously rhyming couplets are hard. I'm not going to take that away. It is hard to come up with tell a story through a song, but also have a rhyme. I just thought that was the hardest thing to do ever when I was a kid in school in music class. But then
it's not just the rhyme, but it's the meter. So
tell me about that.
Which is the rhythm of the thing. So you've probably heard the term iambic pentameter.
Yes.
And and this is just Shakespeare wrote in blank verse, without rhyme, So there is poetry is like a whole other discipline, we have to understand the medium, and it's a lot of poets nowadays they freestyle, but if you're truly serious about poetry, you have to go back and study the actual this particular type of verse, poem has so many verses, and the rhyming scheme is this, and it uses this meter. So it's a whole other discipline. But what I write is prose I'm sort of finding my stride with that, and writing stories and painting mental pictures. Yeah,
because that's the beauty of it, right? Projecting what you see in your mind's eye into words, so then someone can then sort of visualize exactly the same
it's
things.
magic. This is the reason why they call it spelling. You know.
oh wow! I've never looked at it from that perspective. Yeah. Spelling.
Well, for someone, to be able to pick up a book from 400 years ago and actually be immersed in the words that were put down on the page in another world, it's dreaming while you're awake. It's this is why AI and these sorts of things is upsetting so many people's, because writing and books is the cornerstone of civilization, and it shouldn't be touched with. Like to just hand it over to machines to, this is what makes us human. And it shouldn't be touched the way it is.
Very true. We're going to do a deep dive into AI because it's an interesting topic.
I don't know why I keep coming back to it, but it's
because you're coming back to it because it's in your subconscious and it's probably a threat. That's the way I'm getting, because you think of your future, and your writing is your future because you want to make it into a very sort of successful career.
Well, you said it's a very analog thing.
Yeah.
And
but at the same time, if people are dumping like this digitally created content, and then it creates so much noise that you don't know what's real, what isn't. You look at some of the steps that some of these companies are taking. For example, YouTube stopped monetizing videos that had AI voices. Right? Because that's obviously people are just generating content, just dumping out there, and it's all rubbish, right? Then you also then have this problem, let's say on Instagram or other photo type of websites where, what you're seeing on those websites, it's actually not real. It doesn't exist. And, people are once again getting this false reality. I love photography, right? That's what I want to be my side hustle. I know how hard it is to take a good photo and get the lighting right and the composition and to get the model to look in the right way to sort of emote that feeling that you're trying to get from an image. Now, if I put that into a prompt and stuck in the AI and that did it for me, well, then that kind of kills the mood, doesn't it? Because my artwork or my art form all of a sudden is just sort of diminished. And I get the concept. I think there is a place for AI, right? Maybe more in the mathematics and the modeling and the, we're using AI to stop using drug testing on animals, for example. Right?
Yes.
That's a positive impact with the technology, right?
Yes.
For me, it's give me more of that. And don't go into the low-hanging fruit, which is the creative stuff, because it's the content that the AI is reading in order to generate this stuff that's making it easier for it to do that, right?
Yeah, I think the stereotypical view of what artists are like, in their garret, smoking a cigarette, hugging the heater at the winter time, suffering for their art, is true to an extent. The poor artists and the musicians and the writers of the world don't need to be kicked any more than they are. Yeah. So it's one of the sad truths of our society that for some reason people look at a work of art and they think the painting on the wall or that's easy. I could do that.
Until you pick up that brush.
Well, why
or
don't
that
you?
pencil.
The poor artists have spent their lifetime developing the skills they need to do this. But in Ireland, apparently recently, they've introduced this government scheme to make sure that artists are paid, a base wage or something like that. They're exploring that at the moment. That's interesting. I'm not suggesting.
Yeah, but the thing is one of the things that I remember hearing when the palace burnt in the UK, Buckingham Palace. Remember there was that fire, right? So obviously they wanted to rebuild it, but they found very quickly that the artisans of the people that had those trades that were able to do the woodwork and the stained glass windows and every other piece of, I guess, overlooked skills that were kind of disappearing, were going away.
Lost, huh?
Yeah, and so I think their government at the time then sort of said, okay, you, Mr. Let's say woodworker or or window maker or whatever, you now have a job at a university or a trades college for life because we want you to teach this to as many people. And then obviously that's when you fund those courses from a governmental perspective. So then, you get people taking it up. And then falling in love with it. And then you sort of have these skills that you should have that you don't want to disappear, right? Yeah, imagine now we sort of have these mysteries about who built what, like the pyramids and how did they do this and how did they do that. Like
less technologies and
exactly right. So so someone at some time knew how to do that, but because it was either like a secret on how it was done, or it was a particular like college that then obviously was pillaged and burnt to the ground, and then all the artisans killed or whatever happens in those days, all that knowledge was sort of lost, right? And it would be a shame to see some of the things that we can still do today disappear, like if it was some kind of extinct art form. So for me, it's like I think there's a lot of importance in art. For me, in Instagram, I follow more trades, more artists, and more of that type of content than anything else because, you really have to admire, those people that actually take their time and effort. Only because I know I can't. I've tried, but I'm not that type of person.
It's food for the soul.
Absolutely.
So if you want to you feel good, you put on, you look at a painting, you read a book, and this is why books are great, is because it represents hours of entertainment, escapism, and you can have many rereads. It can sit on your shelf. You can give it to a family member. If you can listen to a piece of music and get immersed, and it's music is healing. Art is healing. It's important.
Yeah. My original, because I like you, I also grew up on very old episodes of The Twilight Zone. I grew up as a little boy in South America. And my mum used to let me watch TV on a Friday night, and she shouldn't have, because it's created some phobias and isms and that I shouldn't have as an adult. Yeah. But I do remember watching some of those weird things. Right? So to me, two topics were very common. I guess themes were very common in those short stories of the Twilight Zone. So it was either horror or sci-fi, right? So there was two, but there were other types, right? But for me, I noticed that you sort of now picked horror. Is that your genre that you will stick with?
Yeah, I think it speaks to my personality.
Yeah.
I think when people think horror, they think about the 80s slasher films.
Yeah, exactly. That's what. Yeah.
But horror is a very broad church, and there is a whole lot of different subgenres. the Frankenstein movie was just recently adapted by Del Toro. It is, a cornerstone in the Western canon. Some would argue the first science fiction novel. Horror goes back to Dracula, has some very noble beginnings, but, within horror you've got sci-fi horror, you've got ecological horror, you've got weird fiction, you've got, all these different offshoots, gothic horror, my novel Blood Tide is a creature feature, and I would describe it as being a supernatural thriller. There's a story about this young lady who's a server in a diner, and she's a bit of a mess. She's gone through trauma in a past life, and she's haunted by these dreams, these nightmares, and she thinks her life has changed for the better because she's met this dark, mysterious stranger. At the same time, though, there's this detective who's sort of on the hunt for this serial killer who's sort of active in the city, and slowly as he uncovers this the evidence, he finds more and more that perhaps he thinks to himself, maybe this guy isn't human. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm big into the supernatural horror.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the horror that hooked me, It's the supernatural, I've always been intrigued by supernatural. At the same time, it's always scared me, the idea of ghosts, and it took me ages to watch The Exorcist, for example.
Oh yeah, I mean, on that, great segue.
I had a big cringe factor, but the thing about this, sorry to interject, is the thing about the supernatural and horror that appeals to me, it scares the living bejesus out of me, and for me it's like swimming with sharks. We all have a fascination with sharks. We always have a fascination with what scares us. So it's the thrill, it's the danger of when I'm writing, I'm scaring myself.
Yeah. But and you're right, because I guess you tap into that feeling of dread or whatever it is, that feeling that sort of gives you the chills, and then you're visualizing that in your mind's eye and then putting it into writing and then sort of creating that story.
This is it. And I tell you what as well, is you said the word dread. And this is the holy grail of what horror writers try to achieve when they're writing. I think the build up, the feeling of dread, because you can't achieve a jump scare in a book.
Yes.
There are some exceptions, I guess, but it's mostly that feeling of dread. But there's also this idea of quiet horror. This is, Ray Bradbury did this very well, that he talks about, the fall and October. And he talks about the fall and, the leaves on the footpath, and the quiet sound of the wind in the trees, and the idea of the frost on the ground in the morning, and you're painting these pictures. And although being in a horror story isn't a world that you like to inhabit long term, it's still this idea of the sublime, that you can experience sunsets, a heightened feeling of reality when you're actually writing these stories,
Wow.
Yeah.
So your transition, just to segue back into your writing, because you went from the short story format, picking some subjects and I guess some areas which are also pretty dear to me. And you did mention a couple of the sort of my loves when I was getting into the genre myself. But then you decided to sort of go into the longer format. What did you find was the biggest difference going from a short story to writing a novel, which was obviously much longer? It's obviously not more filler because there's mechanisms that you had to take into consideration to start building a longer story, right?
The analogy is that short stories are like the sprinter, at the track and field, and whereas the novel's like running a marathon. Pardon me. So short stories, you need to have in short stories you need to have a knockout ending, like being a prize fighter. You've got to you've got to put the opponent on the mat.
That's right.
So you really got to have a punchy ending, and it's all formula. All stories are made up of a beginning and a middle and an end, but within a story, a writer uses many different literary devices. You may have heard of these: foreshadowing, for example, red herrings. There's Chekhov's gun, and all these ideas that metaphor, symbolism. I could go on. But in a novel, it's all about immersion. So it's a much longer read. So there means that there's more space to be more descriptive and to really flesh out the world. And often people get to the end of a novel and they get upset, because they just think to themselves, I've spent a week, 2 weeks in this book, in this world and inhabiting these characters, and now there's no more. Yeah. And then there's this sadness that comes from finishing a book. And I find that, you might have a real fizzer of an ending sometimes, with some well-known writers often get criticised for this sort of thing, where they have it's a great novel, it's all great all the way through, but then a real fizzer of an ending. Maybe they were writing to a deadline, but readers are more likely to forgive the writer for that if they've enjoyed the journey on the way there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you completed the book. How much of a personal struggle for you was it you went from short stories, you build them up over a period of time, then you published it, but then all of a sudden now you said, I'm going to write a novel now. Now, was there, from a motivation perspective, from, how did that go?
Well, there's a difference between writing novels and actually publishing them. So this is actually my third attempt at a novel. So I actually have written maybe 2-3 partial novels. My first novel I typed out on a typewriter. Big mistake. But I'll return to those, and they might be a real mess, I'll have to fix up. But I think I was writing through one novel and I wrote myself into a corner. I didn't yet have the experience enough to be able to fix the structural issues, or I know now that I just have to reconcile with the fact that I would need to throw out big chunks of what I'd worked on, in order to get it right. But I didn't know that then. But sometimes when you're writing, a new idea presents itself like a sledgehammer in between the eyes, had this great concept for a book, a novel, and that ended up being Blood Tide, and I had to run with it. I had to stop everything, put everything down, start this new project. I thought it would be, a quick novella, but it ended up being a fully fledged novel. It currently sits at 50,000 words, but in its first draft form, it was 75,000 words.
Okay.
So I had to cut it down.
So there's going to be an editor's cut.
Well, yeah, it's better to have too many words than not enough. So I wrote too many words because often when you're writing, you're actually thinking, putting everything on the page. But sometimes the reader doesn't need to know everything because they can connect the dots, and you find yourself repeating yourself, when you're a writer. So this is where, or you write your way into a scene. Nobody needs to hear the highs and the hellos from between two characters. How was your day? It was good, and then describing what the weather was like, so you can cut that paragraph. So quickly I cut it down from 75 to 50,000. These are the things you learn, when you put it together, because you're right. And then obviously through reading it back, and then obviously looking at it from a sense of a reader's perspective, you start sort of saying maybe this is a bit superfluous and maybe it doesn't need to be said, and I kind of get that. The reason why this story grabbed me so much is because it presented a way to put everything that I thought was cool, the rule of cool. You would know this from being a Dungeons and Dragons fan. If it presents to you as being a cool idea, you got to put it in there. So I really wanted to write a book about themes of temptation and sin, it has this idea of the dark stranger. You see this a lot in folklore. It's about, the story's about, a merman or a deep one.
Don't give us too much. I think you're gonna.
I try not to give too much away, but I don't think it's giving too much away to say that this is the sort of area that it sits in. There's plenty of stories that are written about, vampires and zombies and things. So this one, I think it was an underrepresented
absolutely.
Monster. So
there are some fan favorites, obviously, like the ones that like obviously zombies and vampires and werewolves, but it's that original sort of flood of monsters that maybe had some really medieval type of roots from where the stories came, and then obviously were developed into the modern genre. But you're right. I mean, you were touched before on these sort of supernatural sort of adversaries in these stories. And for me, obviously growing up a Catholic and having Catholic guilt and you will go to hell and all that sort of stuff that goes along with that particular religion, you sort of have this dread of not doing not doing the right thing, right? Because bad things will happen to you. So for me as a kid, that supernatural horror was what I always used to sort of trigger me, right? And as a young teen, and I started reading short stories, and I started in science fiction through a recommendation of a friend. But then obviously the thing that really got me into horror was The Exorcist, right? I actually watched it on TV. I think it was on late night, Friday night, and I was watching it with my dad, and he was getting freaked out. And then for me it was like I really wanted to know a lot more about the story, and then I picked up William Peter Blatty's book, right? Yeah. And then I realized that the movie did it justice, but the dive into the occult that the book did was so much deeper and so much richer, because it did build this sense of a world that you were, diving into. And for me, that was the catalyst to then look, for other authors.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right to be afraid of the supernatural. I think it's easy to forget that in 2025. Not all of us are believers, but you don't need to believe in the devil, Yeah. He believes in you. Yeah. And he's called the adversary, in religion, So, but, one of the big themes in any story, the theme is good versus evil. And, but, I think people look at horror writers and they think, oh, geez, what's wrong with them? What's the fascination? I'm not writing about evil because I love the idea of evil, and I'm writing this because, it's a truth about, the warts and all truth about our world, particularly now. I think
Absolutely.
You only need to look at the news to see the evil in the world, but, out of, catastrophe and chaos, we see people at their best, people rising above it, good people doing good things, and, and the love between family and these sort of things. So, often you speak to horror writers and there's some of the, the warmest, loveliest people you can meet. There's a great community of horror writers here in Australia. And I think, this is why even some people watch horror movies, as a comfort background TV,
Yeah, some people do.
Stranger Things, it's like...
Yeah. And I think in every author's, I guess, intention when they're writing these books, even let's go back to the classics, and you mentioned Frankenstein, right? So obviously that was science back then, the way that, Mary Shelley sort of saw that. To her it was like, this is what happens when humans think they're better than God, right? And then they create things that are out of their control, because obviously they don't know better, right?
Yeah. Well, Frankenstein was originally called Frankenstein, or a modern day Prometheus.
I thought you were going to say Frankenstein.
Yeah. Or a modern day Prometheus. So this idea that Prometheus in Greek mythology, he was one of the Titans, I think.
He was created.
He stole fire from the gods.
Gave it to man.
Yeah. So and I think this is one of the great things about this Frankenstein movie by Del Toro that's been released. He gets it, and he showed that the real monster in the story is Frankenstein. His hubris, his great sin was, playing God by being the creator and creating man, and the creature, the monster, was the innocent who was mistreated. He wasn't born or created evil. He became evil through his evil treatment, and this is great stuff, and it's a moral, we learn from this stuff, and and Peter Blatty, so William, did I say that right? William Peter Blatty, who wrote The Exorcist. He originally wrote that story to bring people closer to God, because that's my understanding. I believe that he
did that.
Yeah. He thought, I think he is a Catholic himself, or he's a Christian, and I believe and he wrote that story to put the fear of God into, put the fear of the devil in people, you know, to pull them closer to the light, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's that methodology, the true and tested methodology used by the Christians to scare the bejesus out of people to, to be good, right? And it works for some, not for all, right?
Yeah,
but,
well, Jesus told parables, you know, he told stories on the mount. So stories have been there since the beginning, since Neolithic times. And, you know, and one of the earliest stories that people told around the campfire, I guarantee you, was about the saber-toothed tiger, you know, and the Neanderthals and, you know, scaring, you know, there were nightmarish stories.
Absolutely.
And,
Speaking of nightmarish stories, the second book that William Peter Blatty wrote as a follow-up to The Exorcist was called Legion, right? And it wasn't that terrible movie that was done as The Exorcist Part 2, because that was created by screenwriters and had nothing to do...
This is the one with... the English actor, wasn't it? Burton,
it was, and that was like a 3-hour movie that got squashed into 1 hour. So when you watch it, it just doesn't make any sense, right? But to sort of not talk about the movie Exorcist 2, but go and talk to the book about Legion, it takes off with some of the sort of supporting characters within The Exorcist, and then it does a deeper dive into the occult and sort of other areas which are, you know, taboo, you know, for some of these religions, right? Like, you know, don't go there. But obviously he's sort of navigating through that world of good and evil, but also taboo and sort of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And he touches on some really good, and it is an exciting story as well.
Well, you know where this name Legion comes from, which is of course that story from the Bible where Jesus drove out the demons from you know, the possessed man into the pigs and drove them off the cliff, you know, and you know, we are Legion or whatever,
for we are many. My name is I am called Legion, for we are many.
Which gets me thinking about you know, Paradise Lost, John Milton. And you know, when it depicts or talks about you know, the story of Lucifer being cast out of heaven, and in that story he's sort of an anti-hero, where it actually chronicles his journey being cast down and all this sort of stuff. Frightening stuff. But this goes right back to, you know, the start of the Western canon, you know. John
Absolutely.
Milton and all this sort of stuff.
So one of the other, I think this is a movie, I'm not sure if it's a book, but if you know about it, or any listeners sort of know, like, just sort of send me a note or whatever. But there's that movie by Denzel Washington where he's a policeman and he's following...
Training Day, isn't it?
No. This one is the one that he's actually following a killer. And the killer is...
Fallen, I think it's called.
Fallen. Yeah, that's the one with the is on my side. Yeah, that one. And that is that type of dread that I was trying to sort of encapsulate when we were having a chat earlier, because there's nothing worse, right, than having something that you know you can't beat, right? And that movie creeps me out even to this day. And that twist, like you said, right at the end, which I won't spoil for anyone that, you know, hasn't watched the movie, but that was brilliant, right? Because it was just a perfect screenwriting as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, you watch the movie once and then obviously it's spoiled forever, a little bit like Ender's Game, but it's just that first journey. That's amazing.
It makes me think that story, excuse me, about it's about this idea writers use a lot is the idea of archetypes. And this is something that Carl Jung, championed, and that in stories you've got archetypes. So you've got the hero or heroine, and you've got the villain, and trying to recall all the archetypes right now, but one of them is the shape changer or the doppelganger, and you see this in a lot of stories. Going right back to tribal myths and things about the shape changer, and Fallen's one of those. I mean, when you think about it, because the antagonist is able to leap bodies or
possess bodies, and just at the touch, and it was quite.
But it creeps people out because of the uncanny valley. Are you familiar with this concept?
I know, but how does it relate to the movie?
Well, the whole thing with uncanny valley is, one of the things that creeps people out is seeing a human face or human figure that doesn't quite look human, that looks out of place. It's kind of like the mask in Halloween, that sort of waxen look to a face, and which sort of alludes to the idea that perhaps one time in our human history that there was a genetic reason for wanting to be scared of something that looked human that wasn't quite human.
Yes, no, I did hear a talk about that in particular, because obviously we know our human face. We grow looking at our parents' face even as we're infants, right? And so when there's something that's just slightly not right, it actually does trigger that effect on people. It's almost like a fight or flight type of effect, right? That came up in the movie Tintin, the CGI movie Tintin.
Oh, right, yeah.
They spent so much processing power in the CGI that the characters almost look lifelike.
Oh, right, yes.
And it was creeping people out. And so Peter Jackson actually had to make it look more CGI, to give people that idea that you're watching a digital cartoon, that you're not watching like some make-believe humans in the screen. And so that's a really documented sort of effect.
Yeah, there's an interesting book. It's on my TBR list. Forgive me, I can't remember the name of the author, but he posits the idea he must have been a anthropologist or archaeologist, or where he posits the idea that Homo sapien and Neanderthals, they lived side by side.
They overlapped,
but there is evidence that there is Neanderthal genes in our DNA, and that they crossbred, but he posited the idea that that there were wars, between, and went further that the Neanderthals might have preyed on Homo sapien.
Yeah, look, I don't think they've found any sort of like Neanderthal campfires with bones of humans yet.
No, I'm not saying I believe in this, but I think it's fun for entertainment purposes, entertain the idea.
Oh, absolutely.
It's got like a pseudoscience.
Have you heard of on YouTube the Y-Files?
But I brought this up because it might explain for the uncanny valley. That maybe Homo sapiens walking along the forest somewhere gathering some berries, and then they out of the corner of their eye, they catch sight of this big hairy Neanderthal looking there, baring his teeth, and that'll put the fear into you.
Yeah, it's like he looks human, but he's really big, and his bones are bones are twice as thick. But there was this a really cool theory. So on YouTube, there's a very popular channel called the Y-Files, right? And it's almost like tells a story of an urban myth or something, and then at the end, he kind of either debunks it or like tells you whether it's something that potentially could be plausible, right? It's sort of it's almost like the myth factors.
I think I've seen this. Yeah.
But he did one episode.
Does he have a mascot?
Yes. He's got Hecklefish, the talking.
Hecklefish.
Yeah.
There you go. I've seen it.
Yeah. But he did have one episode, and it wasn't a debunking type of episode, but it was one where it was more of a theory, where yes, imagine humans and Neanderthals overlapped, and we know they did. Yes. Right. Obviously, we know how the species finally came to its demise, and you're right. We do find their genes in us. And so cross-population
not so much me.
But there's definitely evidence of that, right?
Right.
But one of the things that he actually sort of touched on, which was, Tolkien wrote about orcs, which is more than human and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But imagine back in the day, and we're talking 15,000 years ago when they were still around, they were the orcs, right? They were like Neanderthals. Now that we have their full skeletons, their bones were twice as thick as ours.
Yes, yeah.
Right? They were taller. Brain capacity was bigger.
Have you heard about the Lovelock Cave in Nevada?
I've heard of it, but tell me more.
In 1911 or something, a bunch of miners, in the Lovelock Cave in Nevada, found all these 7-foot tall skeletons. The giants.
The North American giants.
The thing is that for years, they and in 1924 they did some further excavations, but the local Paiute clan have this legend built up around it, how these cannibal tribe of giants, red-headed giants, were preying on them basically, and they had to hunt them down and basically smoke them out of their cave or something, and they've got this big story around it. And lo and behold, this legend, from the local Paiute people, there's evidence of it. There's all these dead 7-foot tall skeletons in this cave.
But the big conspiracy theory in America is that the Smithsonian is sort of hiding all this evidence, because there are documented articles from newspapers from back in the day saying, hey, guess what? We found these skeletons and we're sending them over to the Smithsonian and never to be seen ever again.
They got lost in the post.
Yeah. Either that, or it's like, we do pranks for, April Fools. So who knows, right? And I know that there were authors, especially in the newspapers before the Pulp Fiction sort of stuff started, that loved pranking people on the newspapers.
Well, Loch Ness was thought to be started out as a hoax. Those photographs or.
And it was.
Loch Ness Monster.
The Loch Ness Monster, exactly right. And I mean, the story that the one that sort of resonates with me most was that someone thought they saw Nessie, then they reported, and this person was
ran across the road or something.
That was ridiculed so much that practically ended, not ended, but changed his life forever for the worse, right? Because now you're this fool that believes in dinosaurs or whatever, right? And apparently his best friend was the one that doctored the head popping out, that picture, a very famous picture, to sort of give his friend credibility.
Oh, well, that makes me feel better, see?
Yeah.
He's helping his friend out.
Yeah, no, because, and I mean, imagine like, it was your brother or, these guys were very close apparently.
Yeah.
And he felt so bad for his mate.
But not only that, he wasn't just helping his friend, he helped an entire industry, tourism industry.
A whole cryptid industry.
Somewhere there is someone on an assembly line making some
That's right.
Loch Ness Monster keychains, and it's all because of this bloke putting that photo together.
It's amazing. Every culture has their thing, right? Where that you bring it. I'm not sure of too many Scottish, obviously, like mythological or cryptids or whatever, right? So obviously in Australia we've got the bunyip, right? And then that's sort of like a big toad that used to live in billabongs and stuff like that, right?
Well, I think the bunyip, I think in the Aboriginal dialect means like bad place or like bad, don't go there.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it was residual memory, genetic memory from or like an oral tradition passed down. Don't go down to the waterhole, or because they had megafauna here in
Back
Australia.
in the day, yeah.
And some people think that maybe the Diprotodon or Diprotodon, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It was basically a giant wombat or hippo-like creature that lived. One of the most dangerous animals in the world is the hippopotamus.
Yeah.
And you see pictures of those things, so much so that one of the pharaohs in Egypt had to basically kill off or, ordered the mass culling of all these hippopotami, along the Nile or whatever. So I'm jumping around a bit here, but maybe this giant megafauna marsupial creature, like a hippopotamus, would occasionally come up and grab
someone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No. Look, I'm a big believer that some of these myths do come from either like oral tradition of stories that have sometimes been sort of maybe told too many times, and obviously they change every time they're told. But I do totally believe that.
But I mean, just think about the number of cryptids that have been proven to be real, like the okapi and the Komodo dragon, the platypus here in Australia, all considered to be,
strange creatures that they were like.
They were eventually found to be, no, this is a real thing. So,
but it's funny how, like, if you explained it to like a European, if you came down on a boat and then sort of drew some paintings and then took the paintings and they'd probably look at a kangaroo, a picture of a kangaroo, they're like, yeah, right, whatever. But then obviously they did take some of these animals back, like into Europe and just sort of say, here it is, like, here's a kangaroo.
I mean, Australia has such weird fauna.
Yeah.
Because it's such an arid country, the animals here have had to, evolve a different set of of anatomy and skills. I mean,
absolutely. And it's really weird how far they go, right? I saw a doco on the moa in New Zealand, right? Because they wanted to figure out whether it was related to ostriches or emus or, any other type of like flightless birds that still exist. And genetically, they're a branch of their own. It's like they're more related to a kiwi than they are, to an ostrich or like.
I heard news that one of these corporations or something is working at bringing them back.
Yeah, great. That's
the whole genetic thing.
Fantastic. Like
it could change Thanksgiving and Christmas forever.
Absolutely.
Having a big mower on the table.
Imagine the parties we could have. Like it's like in the 80s and 90s when a pig on a spit was like the fad. Everyone was doing it.
Yes,
it'll be a mower.
But
on
the
a
thing
spit.
is, right? the mower died off because of the Maori, right? I'm sure, you know.
It was hunted, yeah.
But, you know, through the Maori killing off all the moa birds, it's a predator, you know, this giant eagle that, you know, was big enough to pick up a kid, you know, had died off. I forget the name of the bird for now, but its main prey was the moa. So this poor eagle.
Then all of a sudden, it's got nothing to eat. Yeah. It's horrible, but you know, like I guess.
Who's the villain in that story?
I don't know.
Man,
yeah. I mean, and those big, you know, luauts that they would have with a big moa. Imagine a big moa drumstick. It would have. Yeah. But you know, so the other thing that, like, I was always fascinated from a horror perspective. Then, you know, you start sampling, you know, authors, and you know, I did the Coons, and I did obviously King, right? The King one that always used to freak me out, and once again, it gets into this type of horror where you really can't do much about it because the bad guys, the protagonist, antagonist, is so bad, right? And it was, for me, it was Salem's Lot. Right, which is like, what would happen if Dracula actually did get to London and he did start his little cult of like vampires? Then obviously that's what Salem's Lot was. You know, like we take it from there. There was an 80s adaptation,
Mr. Barlow.
Yeah, of Salem's Lot on TV, and I remember as a kid,
Rob Lowe, wasn't it?
I can't remember who was in that. All I know is I was scared shitless watching that, especially that scene where the relative comes to the window and is telling the little kid, "Hey, invite me into your house."
Yeah,
and it's like that to me is like, oh my God, that is so scary. Because if you make the mistake, that vampire is invited into your home forever. There's nothing you can do to get rid of it.
Yeah, the vampire, you know, if you go back to the source material that Bram Stoker based his stories on, the
Vlad the Impaler.
Western European, Eastern European stories, the vampire, that stuff is pretty frightening. I kind of feel like this recent movie, Nosferatu, did a great job of that, getting back to the early folklore around the vampire, and it was closer to the Eastern European folklore and the legends, and and it was more of a bestial, you know, creature,
absolutely,
than a suave count. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really got sucked into that movie atmospherically. It was so good. I mean, you know, look, I grew up on the Keanu Reeves, you know, from back in the day.
I still really love that movie.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like the Gary Oldman's fantastic in that.
Yeah.
But the great thing about that movie is that, you know, if I watched a documentary on it, that they were having trouble working out the ending to the story, and they had to get a how do you say, like a doctor in to fix the screenplay, you know, and they said we should have like the Mia, the love interest, you know, and the Count, they should have this lovely moment at the end of the story. It should be a love story, and he should be redeemed in the end. But you know, Gothic stories have their origin in romanticism, and the fact that there's that real streak of romance in that story, because there wasn't really a hint of that in the original Dracula book.
No,
they added that romance, the love story between Mia and the creature, the Dracula.
Yeah,
and to me it made it better.
For those who haven't actually read the original, it's written in it's almost like a notebook, right? It's the account
Epistolary.
Yeah,
it's a very famous example of the epistolary form.
Yeah.
The idea of, and another example would be World War Z.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's written in letters and emails and text messages or whatever.
Yeah, like it's recounting.
That was the form. So it's the novel example of Blair Witch Project. The found film. Movie,
Exactly, right. And for me, that was really interesting because, like we were talking, we're familiar with the modern adaptations of it. But then when you read the book, you realize that it is a different story because it's put in a different format. And you're enjoying the same story, but from different perspectives, from a different sort of point of view. I really, really loved diving down to some of those source materials because that's where the magic really is, all the magic. And I can't wait to sort of see, because I think there's a bit of a revival bringing back some of these stories now where CGI is so much better, and there's definitely some Stephen King stories that should be remade because
in my opinion, I think King's the best. He's the man. He's the king. They should make every story that he wrote into a movie or film.
Although I think his earlier stories were more adaptable because they were shorter and they were more succinct. And I found, for example, the one that it's an easy remake that could definitely sort of fall into the universe is The Shining, right? The original, the book, The Shining, it's not about the dad like the movie was. It's about the boy, And in the movie in Doctor Sleep, which is a continuation of The Shining, but obviously the boy is all grown up. If you haven't read it, read the book.
No,
it's amazing. And the movie did it justice. I must admit, it was one of those movies that
really rose top hat. I love reading the book.
But The Shining itself had some imagery. Especially when, obviously they were trying to run away from the possessed dad. They go into this maze. It's the garden maze. And in the book, the topiary animals become alive and they're chasing. That's
so the movie. See, Kubrick's movie. It's a great looking movie. Don't get me wrong, but I love the mini series that they did.
Oh, okay.
There's a mini series based on The Shining, which I think is superior in terms of it's closer to the book, and it's more faithful to the book. And so, an example would be in Kubrick's movie, Jack Nicholson gets frozen at the end. It's sort of like a death by, ice. That's the thing. But in the book, it's the boiler in the basement. Things are boiling over. Things are getting hot. So it's hot versus cold, And also, exactly right, the topiary thing. They missed that, in the Kubrick thing. And they also missed the scene where he digs in under the snow and he's in the dark and he's feeling around, he's on the play equipment and he's sort of under the snow, and there's a thing in there with him and he hears the rustling of the leaves. Something's moving out, reaching for him in the dark. And that that's a scene that they forget to include in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, some of them there was just no technology in those days to because it was all practical effects back in those days.
A movie that maybe doesn't need as much adaptations is they're again making another Carrie.
Oh, really?
They're going to make a TV series, but talk about epistolary stories. Carrie, had a bit of that in the story, news articles and things. So
yeah. And it's great. So I definitely love his universe. One of the stories that I read was what was it, 1962? I think it's a date. It's the one that it's about JFK.
Oh yeah, so, 11.
Yeah, that one.
I know the one. 63.
Yeah. And that one, I actually was quite fascinated by it because obviously I'm obsessed with JFK.
I love that book. It was great.
Yeah. And there's this little bit where the protagonist in the story, correct me, have I got it right? Protagonist is good guy, antagonist is bad guy.
Yeah, got it.
So the protagonist in the story arrives in Derry, and he comes across the kids from the It novel.
The Loser Club.
It was a year after the It thing happened, the first time with the kids.
Yeah.
And I remember reading it.
They call that an Easter egg. I mean, he's got that in all of his books, in the universe. He's sort of tied them together, little nods here and there. It's great stuff. It's a reward to the reader.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then all of a sudden it's like, yay! And to me it's like... but personally, I found that his last books got a little bit too verbose. I wanted more me, less characterization. And obviously he's amazing at characterization, but to me the appeal of the earlier novels, which were primarily, he was sampling different occult, right? So you've got Carrie with telekinesis, and then you got like the fire starter, and then obviously that's sort of in that space, and then you got the vampires, which is Salem's Law, and sort of he's sort of like trialing out all these different.
He's just having fun with it.
He's having fun with it, but to me it was always good because it was more about the traditional story. He's a good guy, or whatever we can't call as a good guy. The long one that I enjoyed was the Tommyknockers, and I'm sort of going into that space.
I like the first 2/3 of that book, but it sort of digressed, famously so.
Yes.
At the end, he kind of lost his way, and even King sort of admits that is not his favourite book for that reason. But I love the first 2/3.
Yeah, I think what happened was that obviously, you have to be all in with the alien genre. Like there's to sort of encapsulate a reader. I mean, for me as a child, my devil disappeared and aliens replaced that. My nightmares were the devil when I was a kid, and then became aliens when I was a young adult, right? And for me, the Tommyknockers was amazing because all of a sudden he's trying to be scientific about what's happening, and the real horror is the way the humans are being used. And we just realize as the book progresses that the aliens are just humans, but much evolved, and they're just as nasty as we can be, and they just sort of and all of a sudden it's like, you're right. And I think the sort of alien thing, which is like we don't know who they are,
It's the talking about feeling alienated. The protagonist in that story feels alienated because of the aliens, because everybody else in town is becoming part of a hive mind, and he's the only one that's left out because a tin plate in his head or something.
Oh no, she has all fake teeth.
Is it? So something like that.
Yeah. So obviously gnaws the teeth and ground them to a point where the dentist says they all got to come off because you're going to have all. So they're all like metal teeth, right?
Oh, right.
And
no, I'm talking about the protagonist.
And that stops the aliens from getting into her head.
I should give it a reread. I'm looking out for a copy.
You may be right. I think the movie was turned into a her, but the book is a him.
A him in both cases, but there was a love interest in the story.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So we digress into the details,
yeah.
but all in all, like aliens is that other thing that obviously people love to sort of get freaked out on, right? I mean, was a Stryber did Communion. And the way he wrote that story was like a personal account, like this happened to me.
Yeah.
You know, obviously then
Have you seen Fire in the Sky?
Yeah. And I also, you know, I read that book before that movie was created. I was actually excited to see that they were creating that movie because I always thought it was a harrowing story. I grew up in Latin America all the way up until the age of 8, and obviously the OVNI or UFO sort of mythology was pretty big in Latin America. Obviously, we had. I had a little animated book or illustrated book of Isaac Asimov's. What's the guy with Chariot of the Gods?
Chariot of the Gods.
Yeah, he wrote the book. Von Daniken. He wrote a book, right? So I had an illustrated version of that, and how like the spaceships could land in the Andes, in the lakes, and so all this sort of. I was indoctrinated very early into the alien culture or the mythology, right? And so when I discovered Roswell and all that sort of stuff, for me
Area
was
51
But then the story doubled down when you started with abductions and this sort of like they can come into your bedroom at any time of the night. It's almost like this imp in that sort of medieval drawing with that imp. On the end of the bed as the person sleeps,
right?
Where like they can come in and get you.
Great film. Have you seen the one? I think it's called No One Will Save You. Is that the name of the title? Something like that. It was a recent film that's really excellent.
Yeah. And for me that's sort of like sort of caught everyone's imagination, right? When the Vatican says, hey, believers, we may have to open our idea that God may have created other, species somewhere in his broad universe. All of a sudden it's like, did the Pope just tell me that aliens exist?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden these sort of floodgates start opening.
Well, one of the big theories around aliens is this ancient astronaut theory, which is based on some of the religious texts, and you only need to look at the Bible to see things like Ezekiel and his fiery chariot in the sky with wheels, and that sounds kind of like a UFO. Or the Mahabharata, the Hindu texts, talking about the Vimana, the basically the Hindu flying UFOs. Advanced technology. Yeah.
And there's plenty of sort of that, that sort of context that. Now as we're sort of getting a lot more informed, like normal people, normies, are getting more informed because of the internet and because of YouTube and all that sort of stuff. It's creating a different category. Before you were either an archaeologist or, someone that sort of studied ancient cultures or whatever. And then you were the keeper of the knowledge. You were the person that sort of you came to ask these questions or interviewed or even wrote your books, right? Unless you were into that thing and you found this author, you really wouldn't have found out. But now you can jump on YouTube and there's a particular guy, he's an Australian guy. I think he lives in Europe. His name is Ben. He's got a channel called Uncharted X, and he's a normie that became an ancient civilization specialist.
Right.
Right? He loves the subject so much that he sleeps, eats and breathes it, and then he's come up with some amazing theories, and he's put together a lot of other people's body of work and come up with these, this content about ancient civilizations.
Yeah.
And through him and other people's like him, I'm discovering some of these commonalities in ancient history, and you did bring up like the Bible, especially the Old Testament, right? But then I realized that we're told the story of Noah, right? But then Noah's story is told in even older stories from Mesopotamia. Obviously, the names are different, right?
Yeah.
But the stories have been told even before that.
Have you heard of the book The 12th Planet?
Yeah.
The 12th Planet?
Yeah.
Which is...
Nibiru, Planet X.
That's right. It sounds very credible, doesn't it?
It does.
But, it was Zachariah Sitchin, I think his name was, but he's been widely debunked or, discredited. But, interesting ideas based on interpretations of the Sumerian ancient Mesopotamian tablets or...
But do you want to hear something really weird?
What's that?
So there is an anomaly in our galaxy, like our particular galaxy. No, actually, our solar system. Sorry, I went too big. In our solar system, that there is evidence, right? Because of
you're not going to say Nibiru is out there, are you?
No. Well, I'm not going to say it because I'm not an expert, but there are enough evidence because of the paths of our planets and magnetic forces and the ways that one of our planets is funky, right? And the only way it can be described is that if its course, its orbit is changed by something that to this day no one can actually know why. Right? Now, one of the theories is that if a planet did a circumference of the sun, which
was Sitchin's
idea,
theory that every 3,000 plus years Nibiru would come into our solar system.
In the world of astronomy, there is credible theories and evidence that there is something out there that is this odd, weird planet that is in orbit in our solar system, but it's such a long. It's almost like a planet version of a comet. Remember,
which is sounding very much like what he was saying,
and it's only this has only been discovered recently in the last 20 years because people now can observe orbital paths and then all of a sudden, well, how did that planet, why does it do this, why does that planet revolve the other way, and etc., that someone's got to a point where they got to a planet, and for the life of me I can't remember which planet, but it's like, wow, that's really weird, why is it doing that? And then one of the theories is that that could be the reason. Yeah,
well, he was talking about that Anunnaki who were from the planet Nibiru.
Yeah.
And he's sort of drawn some parallels between them and the Nephilim and the Bible
and don't let facts get in the way of a good story, right?
No, it's great yarn, and this is why the book sold millions. And I'm sure even though people know that it's been debunked that it's still a good read. So
exactly right. It's like the other thing in the biblical sense of the word too. It's like that book that got left off out of the Bible, right? Which is the
Dead Sea Scrolls. Or something.
Well, I'm going to have to edit this because I really need to bring this up. The Book of Enoch. How can I forget, right?
Yes.
So when the early Vatican was putting together what the Bible was going to be, obviously it had many offerings of all these different books, right?
Yes.
And one of the books was the Book of Enoch, and the Book of Enoch is primarily, if you've seen that Noah movie with Russell Crowe,
yes,
where they have the Nephilim and the rock creatures helping them build the Bible, it's more of that, right? And so, but that book didn't actually make the cut for all the books in the Bible.
Yes.
But it does exist, and it was written at a particular point in time or collated at a particular point in time. But it's so out there that, obviously it's not canon as far as like Christianity is concerned. But it doesn't stop the book from actually existing. And so a lot of people sort of lean towards and say, hey, this is an alternative sort of creation myth and whatever. And he does tap into a lot of that sort of regional sort of beliefs, whether they came from the Sumerians or the Mesopotamians or Egyptian or whatever. I mean, it was stories that were handed down, that were documented, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I like this story, and they're kind of like, dude, no, we can't sell that.
Yeah.
And so he didn't make it. But there is, like obviously the whole angels and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I mean, it all happened. Yeah, I mean, the Bible was interpreted from, from Greek to English to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But some things were lost in translation. I heard online somewhere, some people were commenting on the Ten Commandments, for example, that it's been misinterpreted. That it doesn't say, that thou shalt not lie. It's, that shall not bear false witness. It's a specific type of lying. There's a difference to saying, does my ass look fat in that? It looks, that type of white lie, or, you know what I mean? To bearing false witness that will cause someone harm, or thou shalt not kill. It doesn't say you shall not kill, you shall not murder. So there's a difference. Killing in defense of one's home and family, there's a difference in the interpretation.
What? You mean humans have actually changed like religious texts to suit their own means?
It just comes back to what we were saying before about the legends, the whispers that get passed around, they get watered down, changed, warped, and if you're going to change, this...
humans are humans, right? Like, so obviously we all have our agendas and we always want to win hearts and minds, whether it's with a good story, a good yarn, or or the wrong way, which is by tricking people into believing this or that, right? But you're absolutely right. But for me, it's, let's go back to the original stories, like, and getting back to this sort of ancient civilization stuff. For me, I love Graham Hancock's stuff because he writes about, hey, it is possible that could happen. I mean, we do find constructions on the planet that we don't understand how humans back then could have done it, right? Whether it's in the Peru or in Bolivia, or whether it's in Egypt or like Lebanon or China or whatever, right? We sort of say, okay, yeah, we don't know how they did it, but it's probably best if we don't talk about it. People are starting to talk about it now because we want to know how this came about. You've heard of Göbekli Tepe, right? So
Turkey, isn't it?
In Turkey, right? So it was up until, the 2014s or whatever, we thought that the most grandiose thing that humans have ever built was the pyramids, right? And they are amazing, right? But now, but now all of a sudden we go so much further back in time where people were building, crazy stuff without even, and we didn't even know they were doing it.
The point is that archaeologists are still not able to adequately explain how they move, these stone blocks, many tons across huge distances, and there's something missing in our understanding of the timeline of human history, where there is some technology, our understanding of technology or advanced civilizations that we're not fully across. Like Hancock says, that we're a species that has amnesia. About our own history. But
it's funny how we've formed our mentality, and it's sort of once again in this sort of the theme and conversation, right, where we're so in love with silicon technology, like where computers and things are going to be the answer to everything, that we forget that potentially if we are as old as we say we are, now I think the most credible human skull was found to be 300,000 years old. That's a Homo sapiens sapiens skull, right? Like us today were around 300,000 years ago. And, a lot of people, if they were as smart as you and I, and they had more time in their hands, like didn't have a TV to spend the time watching every night, but had time to be creative and think of things and try to solve problems, because we're the most amazing problem solvers and species for doing that on the planet, right? If we were the same, with the same mental capacity, we could solve the same problems with the same type of communication that we had 300,000 years ago. I'm sure we would have solved some problems with what we had at our disposal, right?
This is the thing that we don't fully understand, that there's some things that are out of place in our understanding of things, because one of the things that's been cited is this cave in Russia. The Denisovans had this jade bangle or whatever that had this perfectly drilled hole, that showing that they had like the technology tens of thousands of years ago. They're supposed to be Neolithic, but they have the technology to be able to create intricate jewelry and drill clean holes, and then
but then you got the other things like and once again Ben from Uncharted X talks about these stone pots that they find all over Egypt, right? That they're machined, right? So they're very hard stones. So obviously this is before they mass-produced pottery. So obviously they had this technology to create these amazing rock utensils, if we can call them that, right? Plates and pots and whatever, made out of these amazingly hard stone. And then we stopped doing it. Obviously, I mean, if someone discovered pottery and they realized, hey, clay is everywhere and we can just bake the thing and it's easier than however these other rock things were made, I can understand why a human would go like, let's do the easy thing, man. Let's go pottery instead. But we still don't know how they used to drill and cut and form those things, right? Because
I'll tell you what would be great is I'm sure there is some talk that you can imprint a sound onto pottery.
Yeah.
Like one would do a vinyl record. And that here is a guy hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, making a ceramic pot, on a spinning wheel, and wouldn't be great, and I don't know if it's scientifically possible, if some technology was invented to be able to pull the sound off that pot, from, because he's spinning it on the wheel and you can pick up the ambient noise in the room from thousands of years ago. Wouldn't that be great if people could work that out? I don't
yeah.
if it's all at all possible. But one thing that I'm sure is going to come out, and then they've got patents for it and things at the moment, is using noise vibration to make objects levitate. And this is a real thing, technology. And Hancock and people like this have posited that maybe this is one of the methods that the ancients used to build these giant, structures. By priest chanting or something like that at the right resonation to make things levitate, and
absolutely.
That's really far out there, man. But it could be.
But yeah, I mean, sound we control, right? We've had instruments for a long time, so that to me that is plausible that through sound experimentation could have happened at a long time ago, where people, what happens is, hey, that baby stopped crying when I played this note. What's up with that? And I think through trial and error, there definitely would have been a lot of that type of experimentation that we would call science now, right? But back in the day, it was like, hey, let's try that 100 times and see if we get a different result. There was a particular...
Just a different type of technology. We've gone down this rabbit hole of using computers, your ones and zeros for technology. Maybe they were using a different type of technology. They went down a different... different path.
There was this particular journal, I just looked it up. It was Alexandre David Neil, which is a French-Belgian explorer, in the 1924, right? So he was in a pilgrimage up in Tibet, and he was fluent in Tibetan. So got a lot of insight into life in Tibet, and was with monks and practitioners up in the mountains. And he wrote a lot of details, field notes and diaries and things like that. And one of the book or the diary was called Magic and Mystery of Tibet. And in one of his accounts...
The idea of Shangri-La or...
Yeah, no, he was primarily on a spiritual thing to discover different states of being or whatever. But because he was up there, he witnessed a lot of things that were not practically shown to Westerners, right? And one of the things that she witnessed and she put down was that when monks would go into a trance state, they could move at specific speeds, and they would appear to glide or bounce so that it looked like they could propel their bodies and defy kind of gravity. Right. I mean, obviously that would be something that someone could do if they were physically toned to to be able to do that with their body, right? We could do a lot of stuff with their body. But one of the things that they witnessed was the horns, those big horns.
Yes.
Apparently, they were repairing a temple. There was an earthquake, and some of the walls had fallen down into a ravine. And what was documented was that with the horns, there was multiple monks playing the horn at the same time at a particular tone, and that tone levitated the rock, and they were able to lift it in place to do repairs, of the temple or the building. And I could have totally butchered that, but there is claims right now. Is it fictional? Was it, actually witnessed? Was it a fabrication or whatever? We're never going to know, right? But the thing is that is one account of someone actually using sound focused in a particular way to be with instruments that have been around for a long time to be able to do that.
You've seen this instrument that gets brought out sometimes where the musicians standing, would dip their finger in some water, and then they'll run their finger over the top of a wine glass, and and they have certain levels of water in the glasses. Well, apparently that sound that the glass makes, that is the vibration or the tone that a singer would need to sing at the right pitch to be able to shatter the glass. That's my understanding of it. So interesting stuff.
There is power in sound, and like obviously there's all theories about like sound healing and things like that. You know, we are going into the forests in the Amazon, coming out with a plant, and it has amazing medicinal purposes that then we extract and turn into a drug, and then it helps many, many people, right? Now, humans, modern day humans, are super polluted. We eat and consume and live in an environment that's constantly bombarding us with toxins and things like that.
You're
right?
Talking to a writer, I live on.
Yeah. But imagine,
I run on caffeine.
Imagine in those days where we weren't obviously being bombarded with something with what we're being bombarded with today, right? And you knew of a plant that you could mash up, turn it into a tea, and you drank it, and it actually helped you, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm guessing that we need more concentrated drugs now because obviously, you know, we've either built immunity or we have all these other toxins in our system that don't allow for these natural remedies to work the way they would have 100, 200 years ago, right? And so I'm a big believer that, you know, there's so much we don't know about this planet and about things that our ancestors may have known and discovered through trial and error that we still need to discover so much more. There's this
positive
particular tribe in the Amazon that cuts this plant, right? Now the plant, and what they do is they wash it and then they dry it, and it turns into a flour, and they can make, you know, like tortillas and stuff like that, right? The problem is this plant that they're cutting, this tree, is full of cyanide, natural in the plant, right? So they've learned to harness the plant, wash it, practically dilute it, and then get it out of the system just to dry it, then just so they can make it into flour. How many times did you have to get that wrong? How many people had to die? It's like, hey, try the bread now. Oh, are you still alive? Must be good. Yep. Let's watch it 20 times. So this is the thing, is like, did they discover that through trial and error or what? But that's, I mean, and I'm talking like a primitive, or what we regard as a primitive.
In the, I think it was the 19th century, or they were finding that all these women were dying during childbirth, or I mean soon after childbirth, from infection, and they found that the ones attended to by the doctors were the ones that were dying, and the ones who were attended to by the midwives were surviving for some reason. And apparently this had to do with the midwives were washing their hands.
Yeah.
Or there was something dopey like that.
No, there was. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And, you know, and suddenly the understanding between the connection of washing your hands and bacteria, you know, was understood in science. There is also this thing in history where a whole lot of people were dying in this village or something. They couldn't work it out. And they worked out that there was this caterpillar on the grass, you know, and the cows were eating the caterpillars, you know, from munching on the grass, and then it was getting into the milk, and there was this poison in the milk, basically, from the caterpillar. I just wonder if that might have been the cause of this thing. Have you heard about the dancing plague?
No.
I think it was in the 1700s or something. This whole village got up, you know, I think it was in France, and it started with one person dancing, wouldn't stop dancing spasmodically, in the town square. More and more people were joining in, and they wouldn't stop, and they couldn't stop, to the point where they were out of, they wouldn't sleep. They were just dancing, and they all carked it, So I just wonder if it had something to do with, there was a psychedelic, or in the bread, or or in the milk or something, and.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, a lot of modern science obviously has discovered, some of the cause and effects, for some of the things that happen today, right? Like one of the things that I never knew existed was the Hunter virus, right?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a virus that's spread through mouse droppings, right?
All right.
And it's a particular northern and southern American mouse that if you happen to be in its proximity and you come across the actual poo, the droppings, it's lethal to humans. That American actor and his wife were found dead.
Gene Hackman.
And I'm not sure if it was he or his wife actually died of Hunter, right? And that... obviously, everyone sort of knew about the mice and whatever, right? But its droppings kill you. Like, it's just so weird that...
But have you heard about this parasite that is in cats?
Oh, I've heard something about this.
Yeah, so I don't know the name of the parasite, but it's sort of in the brain of the cat and can cross from cats to humans. And they've shown that that those people infected with this thing, and there's no cure from it, from what I understand, are more likely to fail and having to go from job to job, and are more likely to have car accidents.
Wow.
And it's because the risk taking jumps up, spikes in that person.
Yeah. So
and yeah,
it's called Toxoplasma
That's
gondii, right?
Yeah.
How do you get it? By cuddling cats.
Yeah. That's why I'm a dog person.
I'm a dog guy too. Oh dear, oh dear. That's yet another reason not to be a cat person.
But I think it's because, it must be a self-preservation thing for the parasite, or, to try and cross from one host to another.
Yeah.
I guess if its current host jumps off a cliff by taking a risk, or gets into a car accident taking more and more risks, that thing will die and then cross over to another animal. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
But ChatGPT is telling me that it's not from cuddling cats. The common route is cleaning the cat litter, so and touching your mouth, so poo, the hands.
Yes.
Eating undercooked meat. Hopefully it's not cat meat, please. Very uncommon source. Unwashed fruits or vegetables. Well, I'd say obviously you can get it from other places, not just cats. But
yeah. But the same people cleaning the cat litter are definitely cuddling their cats.
Absolutely.
So that negates ChatGPT's theory.
That's right. Incorrect. I'm going to mark it incorrect and tell it to give me another suggestion. Hey Brent, look, it's been amazing talk. I think we can talk for another hour if you really wanted to, but I think we can really do a deep dive when we maybe have a chat in the future, right?
Yeah.
Because I really would love to also get a handle on your favorite authors as well, and sort of why you love them and stuff like that. Because I think if we can get one person that listens to this podcast to pick up either your book or any book, I think we've done our duty.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me, where can we find your books?
Well, you can find my books on Amazon and all good good book places. So Apple Books, Kobo, you name it. So available both in ebook and paperback format. You can also find the books on my website at brentmcgregor.com. That's McGregor with an MC. And you've got an option there where I could sign the book and send it off to you. So you feel free to reach out. Anyone who's local in Australia who wants a signed book. But I think anyone who loves a good page turner would enjoy my novel, Blood Tide. One of my favourite reviews online for the book, somebody said they tore through it like midnight pizza. So a real page turner, and I wrote it to be that way with the readers in mind. I had to write the book that I myself would enjoy as a reader. So there's plenty of fun in there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, and you have a cracking voice. Are you going to do an audiobook?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it's very time intensive. So I've got all the equipment, microphones and whatnot. I had a go at doing some podcast episodes and things before. You can find my stuff on my YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. But definitely I'll get into doing audiobooks at some time. Last year I won a award, a prize at the Asylumfest, which is a alternative horror festival here in Australia. It happens around every October here in Australia.
Oh, nice.
In Beechworth, Victoria.
All right.
And it's held at a 1800s repurposed psychiatric ward, asylum. Hence the name, Asylumfest.
The stuff of nightmares.
So I won the ghost story competition for my short story, the Yellow Raincoat.
No one slept that night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Brent, of the Sydney McGregor clan, thanks for coming on the podcast. It was a real pleasure. All the best with the books and future publications, and hope to see you in the future on the podcast again.
Thanks, Vern. It's been a delight, and love to come back on for future episodes if you want us. But thanks to your listeners as well. Do hope you enjoy my reading my books if you decide to pick one.
Thanks, man. Cheers. Bye.